Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The transfer portal season is upon us, and I want to take a deep dive into this Michigan State program and talk about specific players and position groups that Michigan State will be going after as this transfer portal cycle opens up. The Jonathan Smith era, it's upon us. You know Jonathan Smith is going to get a very aggressive in the transfer portal, and what should excite Michigan State fans the most is not only is Jonathan Smith just an absolute home run hire. If you guys have listened to me talk about Jonathan Smith, y'all know how much respect I have for him as a head coach. But what's even more exciting is in this transfer portal era, a first-year head coach has the opportunity to completely revamp a roster and get it much more competitive going into their first year. And there's no doubt in my mind that's exactly what Jonathan Smith is about to do this transfer portal cycle. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. There has been truly a phenomenal amount of support the last couple of weeks, especially as the transfer portal is opening up. The amount of support y'all show, this is what allows us to do what we do. So cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, you want to support the boys, consider subscribing to the channel. And for Michigan State fans, one, this is going to be a program that we're talking a lot about over the next couple of weeks. And then two, I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Players, position groups, Michigan State and Jonathan Smith should be going after. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And you have to start at the quarterback position. There's going to be three names that I want to buzz by and talk about. There's going to be one that we're going to spend the majority of our time talking about, and that is quarterback Aidan Chiles, right? You've had Caden Hauser, Sam Levitt, Noah Kim, all transfer out of the program. Jonathan Smith's going to get a quarterback. The question is, what quarterback is he going to go after? And I think a lot of Michigan State fans are fired up, including myself, about Aidan Chiles coming to East Lansing. This is a guy out of that 2023 class that was a top 60 national prospect, a guy that committed to Oregon State for Jonathan Smith and his mentorship at the quarterback position. And what's most exciting about Aidan Chiles, you look at most quarterbacks that are available in the transfer portal, a lot of these guys are graduates with 1 year of eligibility left. Aidan Chiles is only going into his second year as a college football quarterback. He has plenty of time for Michigan State to bring him in, build an offense around him. And this is a program that it's not only about the 2024 year with Jonathan Smith. You are building to something special under Jonathan Smith. He's a proven program builder. I don't know if there's a better building block to start building this offense around than Aidan Chiles. And he's a guy that has some experience at the college football level, was not the starter for Oregon State, but played significant snaps for the Oregon State Beavers. Jonathan Smith would play in pretty much every third drive at Oregon State, 68% completion percentage, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns to 0 interceptions as a true freshman. And those numbers are extremely impressive for a true freshman quarterback. What's even more exciting, not only is the frame, 6'3", 200 pounds, phenomenal arm talent, it's all there. He's a guy that's a dual threat as well. And you look at the pass rushes that you're going to see at the Big Ten level, the ability to extend plays, get outside the pocket, not even necessarily scramble and run down the field, but extend plays. Keep your eyes downfield. Let your wide receivers have a little bit more time to get open. Aidan Chiles offers that to this Michigan State program as well. If you're a Michigan State fan and you're looking at a quarterback to go after in the transfer portal, I don't think there's a better option than Aidan Chiles. Super high upside. A guy that you're going to have a lot of time to work with and develop an offense around. Obviously familiar with Jonathan Smith and that offense. This one would make a lot of sense. You're already hearing a lot of buzz about Aidan Chiles to East Lansing, and we're going to be fired up if this is able to happen. Two other quarterbacks that I really would just say are kind of contingency plans in terms of if Aidan Chiles ends up not coming to Michigan State. Obviously, you have DJU, the former Oregon State quarterback who started under Jonathan Smith. Jonathan Smith did a lot of good things for DJU. This one would make a lot of sense. He's played a lot of football in his past. And then the last guy I want to talk about, a guy that maybe not on Michigan State fans' radars, but maybe could be, is Kyle McCord, the Ohio State quarterback, just hit the transfer portal. Kyle McCord completed 66% of his balls for over 3,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, was a former top 50 national prospect coming out of high school. This dude can play. Kind of got chased out of Ohio State a little bit. If you're Michigan State and Aidan Chiles doesn't end up coming to East Lansing for whatever reason, Kyle McCord from Philadelphia area would make a lot of sense to wind up at Michigan State as well. Now, you get Aidan Chiles in a perfect world. We're talking perfect world situations here. Now you got to get some weapons on the outside for Aidan Chiles to work around, and there is not a better option than Dion Burks coming from Purdue. This is a guy from the state of Michigan out of high school, was a little under-recruited, under the radar as a high school prospect. You take a look at what Dion Burks has done at Purdue. Not a lot of good things happened for this Purdue offense in 2023. When good things did happen, it was with Dion Burks having the football in his hands. 47 catches, 629 yards, 7 touchdowns, has some experience with special teams. If you're a Michigan State fan and you've taken a look at that Oregon State offense and kind of looked at how it operates, he kind of reminds me of Anthony Gould in terms of out in space, being that guy to have the ability to make people miss, operate in space, and hit those explosive plays. Dion Burks, not necessarily the biggest, most imposing receiver, but a guy that's going to create separation, make people miss after the catch. And again, this is a guy that, with the football in his hands, is extremely dangerous. Looking for a new spot, I think he would fit really, really well into that Jonathan Smith offense. Another guy I want to talk about at that pass catcher room, and that's Donovan McCully. Coming from Indiana, he's a really interesting story here with Donovan McCully. Was a former quarterback coming out of high school, 6'5", 200 pounds, transitioned to wide receiver last year, now full-time wide receiver this year. 48 catches, 644 yards, 6 touchdowns as a guy that's still kind of getting his feet wet at the wide receiver position. Dion Burks is more of that spacey separator. Donovan McCully is your kind of boundary vertical threat. And when the football's in the air, I mean, these aren't 50-50 balls going to Donovan McCully. They're 70-30, 6'5", 210 pounds. I mean, the ability to go up and make a physical combat catch is Donovan McCully's specialty. I think he would make a lot of sense in this Michigan State offense as well. And you had to throw a tight end in there as well. And Michigan State had a ton of talent at the tight end position, just wasn't executed or used properly. If you're a Michigan State fan, you're extremely excited to see how these tight ends are used under this Jonathan Smith offense, an offense that's produced a ton of talent at the tight end position. Now, Cory Dass is from Maryland, and a little bit of a different brand of tight end, kind of a matchup nightmare tight end as opposed to an inline blocking tight end, 6'2", 220 pounds, really productive at Maryland. I mean, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns on 107 catches. This guy has caught in a lot of footballs. He's played a lot of football in his time. You're Cory Dass, and you're a tight end looking for an offense that's going to utilize you the right way. Michigan State and this Jonathan Smith offense would make a lot of sense for you to wind up at. I think when you look at the offensive side of the football, obviously some offensive line. We haven't seen a ton of offensive linemen hit the portal, or Michigan State will be going for a lot of offensive linemen. You got to get a little bit more clear picture of who's available in that transfer portal, but you're looking at getting some building blocks into this program heading into 2024, getting a quarterback and getting some explosive pass catchers. I really do think would be a good start. Now, going to the defensive side of the ball and buzzing through a few guys that I think would make a lot of sense. This is probably already on Michigan State's radar, and that's Thor Griffith. Coming from Harvard, Bruce Feldman puts out a freak list every year for college football athletes. He was on it. 225 pounds, 45 reps on the bench press. This is a guy that has a ton of power in his hand, has been extremely productive at the Ivy League school. And I get it. It's a big jump up from going from Harvard, the Ivy League, into the Big Ten at Michigan State. This guy has it. And at the end of the day, like, you want depth on your defensive line. You want to be able to rotate some big bodies in and out. And Thor Griffith, whether he's starting for Michigan State, whether he's kind of being a rotational piece, would be a guy that's being a productive football player for Michigan State in that 2024 year. Jonathan Smith won a lot of games at Oregon State because he won the trenches on both sides of the football. Jonathan Smith's about to get very active in terms of getting offense and defensive linemen into this program to win the trenches in the Big Ten as well. Part of the reason why I was such a fan of the Jonathan Smith hire, he was running a Big Ten program out in Corvallis in that Pac-12. And so you take a look at his brand of football, it's going to fit right in at Michigan State. And Thor Griffith would be a guy that he certainly would be going after. And sticking in the Ivy League here, you go to a guy in Joey Slackman. He's the number 11 player in the transfer portal right now, the second-ranked defensive lineman, according to 24/7 Sports. Very similar. I don't know if I'd use the word similar, but kind of a similar MO to Thor Griffith coming from Harvard. I mean, you got Joey Slackman coming from Penn, a game record at the University of Pennsylvania, former wrestler, 6'4", 300 pounds, carries that 300 pounds differently. I mean, this guy is absolutely rocked up. The body fat's low, and a guy that in 28 games at Penn, his last 28 games, 25 tackles for a loss. Really good off the line of scrimmage, really good using his hands, and will be a guy that is going to be extremely disruptive on the inside of that defensive line. Jonathan Smith trying to establish the trenches. Joey Slackman would make a lot of sense. Last guy I want to talk about here, and that's going down to the ACC and going out and getting RJ Obin from Duke. He is going into his 6th year of college football. He's racked up 18.5 tackles for a loss, 13.5 sacks. You're Michigan State. You want to get back to winning along the line of scrimmage. Thor Griffith, Joey Slackman, RJ Obin, those are all going to be guys that'll allow you to get back to how you want to play, and especially looking at how Jonathan Smith wants to play and how he wants this team to be constructed. He wants to get guys on the offensive line and defensive line to win the trenches. Thor Griffith, Joey Slackman, RJ Obin, all would certainly make a ton of sense for the Michigan State Spartans. Now, at the end of the day, these are kind of the positions and maybe some players to keep an eye on. We're about to see a ton more players enter in the transfer portal the next couple of days. We'll be keeping track of it. Again, Michigan State fans, really exciting time period to be a Michigan State fan. We'll be covering as many roster moves as we can for you guys. Appreciate y'all rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.